Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom.
This is a fun one, I think. I always love our history units, but this one in particular is fun because it's about fashion. It's the evolution of hairstyles through the ages. We're going to talk about why some hairstyles were popular, where the idea for some of them came, because some were really strange, let's be honest. And we'll just start from way back in history, ancient Rome, Egypt. We're going to go to Egypt even. And then we'll finish up with, I think we finish up in the 60s and 70s and then talk quickly about punk hairstyles, which was really more the 80s. So we're going to get started. Tom, are you all ready to talk about hairstyles?
Oh, God, I can't think of anything else that I would like to discuss. So let's get to it here. Let's talk about this article after we hear it read from top to bottom.
Throughout history, hairstyles have been a crucial aspect of human culture. They have varied significantly from ancient civilizations to the modern era. The evolution of hairstyles not only reflects fashion trends, but also indicates social norms and values of their times. In ancient times, hair represented status and identity. In ancient Egypt, both genders commonly had short hair or shaved heads for cleanliness. They would wear wigs made from human or animal hair for ceremonies. Wig styles indicated social ranking, with ruling pharaohs and nobles selecting detailed designs. In ancient Greece and Rome, hairstyles grew more elaborate. Women styled their hair in curls or chignons, coils of hair worn at the back of the head, improved with some accessories such as gold, powder, and jeweled crowns. The complexity of these hairstyles also signified social status and wealth. During the Middle Ages, religious conservatism led to simpler hairstyles, often concealed under coverings or scarves. However, the Renaissance revived an interest in beauty and elegance. As a result, women adopted complex braids and updos, hair swept up behind the head, decorated with jewels, while men preferred shoulder-length hair, styled with hair creams. The hairstyles during this period were a display of wealth and reflected the period's artistic growth. From the 17th to 19th centuries, hairstyles underwent dramatic changes. In the 18th century, the European upper class embraced fancy wigs and high hairstyles. The most outstanding examples are Marie Antoinette's 60-centimeter tall hairstyles. These were costly to create, built on high cage frames to shape and add height. Contrarily, the Victorian era saw a shift back to natural hairstyles, signifying modesty and femininity. Women wore long, neatly coiled hair, often with short bangs, but never loose in public.
Okay, everybody, let's talk about the contents of our lesson for today. We're talking about the evolution of hairstyles through the ages, how they've changed, how trends have come and gone. And I suppose while we're talking about this, you could discuss this amongst your classmates, with your classmates, about what the current hairstyles are, what is in, what is out, and maybe what you want to get the next time you go to the neighborhood beauty salon.
Right.
And this is for guys and girls as well, because guys, they get hairstyles. Although not as often as the women do, but still guys are concerned about their appearance these days. Not me. I don't really have much hair to speak of, so I just keep it short and everything's okay. But again, we're talking about the slow changes of hairstyles through the ages or through history. Now, here in the first paragraph, it says, throughout history, hairstyles have been a crucial aspect of human culture. Indeed, they are very important. We can't just let our hair grow and leave it there. We've got to trim it and cut it and make it look really nice for various reasons. Some people let their hair grow as long as they want to, like hippies or whatever, or cavemen, and they let their beards grow as well. But nowadays, and throughout history, people did have to be concerned about their appearance, especially in regard to their hair or hairstyle.
Yeah, even the African Americans who have the dreadlocks, D-R-E-D, dread locks, locks of hair, some of them grow them quite long. So you can, grow it long, cut it short. There's so many options. We're talking about the evolution of something, so the changes over time. We're going to be focusing on some pretty wacky styles, wacky being kind of crazy and weird. So the evolution of hairstyles not only reflects fashion trends, everybody wants to be in style or up to date. So they want to make sure that they get their hair done or cut or styled in the way that makes them look like they're hip or really cool. So this just doesn't reflect fashion trends, though. It also indicates social norms and values of their times. Social norms are things that that society agrees upon. It could be manners or your etiquette. One thing that has changed in America is we used to all agree that when you go to a store, you buy something, you don't just take it and steal it. But we have lots of people walking into stores now in some places, especially California, and just stealing stuff, and the cops do nothing. So social norms is when a society agrees upon things that are important to them. For example, one social norm is when someone does you a favor, you say thank you, or you return the favor, you do something nice for them. So we're going to see how these hairstyles actually reflected or showed us what they believed was important back then.
Yeah, they kind of react to fashion trends. If we have certain trends in society, then we have the resulting hairstyles.
Yeah.
They reflect trends in society. And in ancient times, hair represented status and identity. So many hundreds of years ago, if not thousands of years ago, your hair was very important. It was a status symbol. Like nowadays, your expensive car or your luxury apartment or whatever will be a status symbol. So back then, the kind of hairstyle you had was a way to show off how rich you were.
Right. And that's always been important in any era of time, in any decade, century, whatever. People want to show off what they have. They want to tell other people which social group that they're in. So in ancient Egypt, way long ago, we had both genders, the male and the female. They commonly, or usually, you could see this a lot, had very short hair, or they shaved their heads. So they had shaved heads for cleanliness. Nowadays, a lot of our guys shave their heads, even some of the girls. And I'm not talking about people who are going through chemotherapy for cancer. No, it's a popular trend right now to just shave your head clean of all hair. And they did it back then, but not because, it was more stylish. They did it because it was a way to keep bugs out of their hair and the dirt. They didn't bathe as regularly as we do. They couldn't, some of them. They didn't have access to as much water as we do. So they would shave. They wanted to keep their hair clean.
Well, I think a lot of guys shave their heads nowadays because they're going bald and they're sick of worrying about their hair falling out. So they say, I'm just going to shave it all off and not worry about it anymore. And they can actually look pretty smart that way. So at least in Egypt, though, they did not do that because of male pattern baldness. They did it because it made them clean. It kept the bugs and the bacteria away from their heads. And they would wear wigs made from human or animal hair for ceremonies. So they went around bald all the time, or with their heads shaved, both men and women. But if they had some kind of ceremony, like a wedding or maybe praying to the rain god or something like that, they would wear these wigs. And of course, a wig is artificial hair. A lot of people wear wigs because they're losing hair or they're having chemotherapy or whatever. Wigs are quite common in Taiwan. There's a couple of stores around Taipei. I've seen one in Ximending and one on Guangfu, Jilonglu.
Oh, yeah. I walk home on Jilonglu a lot, and I pass by that wig shop every time, and I always look and see kind of the styles they have. I know a lady right now, and she's recovering from cancer, and she wears a wig, but it's very nice. If you can get a wig with real human hair, it's more expensive nowadays, but it's very nice. So, yeah, I love the people who grow their hair out and then cut it and donate it. There was a kid at church with me. He was just I think he was 10 when he did it. He grew his hair out really long, and I was worried about him. Like, is he rebelling against something? But he wanted to give it to one of his friends.
Oh,
he was going through chemo. So
very nice.
Yeah. So they would wear the wigs when they had a kind of a more formal ceremony to attend. And the wig styles indicated or showed to everyone around them their social ranking. Again, what social class they were in. You had ruling pharaohs. Pharaohs were the rulers of ancient Egypt. And you also had nobles. They may not have been the chief dog or the top dog. The guy in charge is the pharaoh. But there are other people that are still in a higher social class, and we refer to them as nobles. They would select detailed designs. So they weren't simple hairstyles. They were very complex, complicated, very fancy.
Right, and they'd have detailed designs. They could have had braids or things like that, or ponytails or pigtails or whatever. Those are different ways to style your hair. And, of course, in ancient Greece and Rome, hairstyles grew more elaborate. So if something's elaborate, it has a lot of details, okay? Say there's a lot of elaborate carvings in Chinese temples, especially the Taoist ones, like the one in Sanxia and, of course, Longshan Temple here in Taipei. They have lots of elaborate decorations in them. And, of course, during Greek and Roman times, they had really elaborate hairstyles, again, with lots of braids, lots of styling, lots of curls, maybe a lot of things put in the hair. And I'm sure it was probably true in ancient China as well.
Right. Remember, these people did not have to work for a living. They had lots of time to just focus on their personal appearance. So while everybody who's just of the working class, the lower classes, they were out slaving away, working hard. They couldn't worry about their hairstyle. So yeah, they had these very elaborate hairstyles in ancient Greece and Rome. And the women would style their hair in curls, or what we're calling here a chignon. Chignon, this word is weird because it's French. Ladies, guys don't wear chignon. It's kind of pulling your hair back from your face and then put it in a bun in the back. That's a chignon. They're very elegant. If you're saying the French is chignon. But yeah, chignons, it's interesting because I've read this word for years and I thought, how do you say that word? So I had to look it up. Coils just means you wrap the hair around and around. So coils of hair worn at the back of the head. And then they improved that. What would they do? They would add accessories. Accessories are things that make something even more attractive. Accessories for an outfit would be things like earrings, a scarf, a hat, things that just, put that finishing touch on what you're wearing. But in those days, their accessories were gold powder. Yes, we're talking real gold. Remember, these are the wealthiest of the wealthy. And they would also wear jeweled crowns. So they would have these crowns with lots of expensive gemstones. They'd have diamonds and rubies and things like that just to show off how rich they were.
Right, or they'd have hair pins or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And the complexity of these hairstyles also signified social status and wealth. Here, to signify just means to give a sign of something, to indicate, to let you know that they were pretty high-class people, and you better get out of their way if they're coming down the street. You better bow down because they're up there, they're gods, and you are dirt, you are scum.
Okay, you are nothing.
You're nothing, that's right. Okay, let's bring in our Chinese teacher now to tell us some things.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们今天跟明天要带大家看一下发型的前世今生，也就是呢，我们要纵观历史来看看发型的变化。那当然，文章的一开始第一段呢，就告诉我们一个关键的时间点，叫做 throughout history。当然 throughout 这个字啊，跟 through 跟 though 跟 throughout 这几个字都长得好像哦。那这个 throughout 呢，它其实有特别强调后面的时间或者是地点，也就是遍及所有的历史。在纵观整个历史当中，那发型当然就是会反映出人类文化当中，不管是社会规范啦，或者是价值观，甚至还有一些时尚的趋势，都会透过发型来反映。所以当我们谈到历史这个 history 的时候，其实它就呼应了文章整个 title 后面的 the ages 这个 The Ages 啊，指的就是一个整个历史。好，所以你在这个 title 当中看到 Through the Ages， 文章第一段也有 Throughout History。当然我们在第一段的第二行最后面也看到一个很关键的字，它也有一长段时间的意思，这个字叫做 era， E-R-A。 不过到底有多长的时间才叫做一个 era， 才叫做一个时代呢？这个就是要看这个专家啊，或者是说明者，他要特别强调的是某一个跟前后不一样的一段时间。例如在这句话当中讲的是现代这个时间点，就会看到 modern era。 好，那我们在第三句，同样是第一段的第三句，特别要注意，因为发型会反映出我们刚刚说的一些时尚的趋势，例如在这句话当中的 fashion trends， 甚至还后面一点点包含有了社会的规范跟价值观。而这句话我们特别用了一个对等连接词 not only but also 来连接，就是我们刚刚反映的这些东西。所以接下来我们从第一段就可以推测2、3、4，甚至是明天的文章都会按照时间点来清楚的说明发型的变化。所以接下来在第二段的地方啊，我们一开始就先看到时间点。第一句的前面3个字 In ancient times， 在远古的时候，这个 ancient 指的是很早很早之前。好，那早到什么时候呢？第二句提到古埃及，甚至是第5句提到了古希腊跟古罗马的这个所谓的古代。那么在古代当时啊，就代表的是社会地位跟身份。同样在第二段第一句也很重要，因为其实段落的第一句、第二句通常都会是整段的文章主旨。整段的这个主旨呢，通常我们会说它是一个主题句，所以时间讲得很清楚。在第二段我们要谈 ancient times， 远古的时候，而发型就会代表的后面的 status 跟 identity， 地位还有身份。所以像在古埃及的时候，通常男女都会留短发啊，剃光头，保持整洁。不过有时候在仪式上呢，也会带着由人类或者是动物毛发制成的一种假发。在这一段的第3句，我们特别注意一下，有一个简化的限定用法的关系子句哦。先行词是在句中的 wigs， 这个就是所谓的假发，后面的 made 到句尾可以左右括号。它省略的就是冠带 which 或 that 跟 be 动词的 were。Be made from， 由什么什么制成。好，那么当然我们说啊，假发就是代表一个社会地位嘛，所以当时的这个法老或者是贵族啊，他们就会选择精心设计的一些款式。好，来到第5句咯，我们就看到了古希腊跟古罗马的时候，发型就变得更精致了。所以在第5句这边，我们就要特别注意一下，时间来到 In ancient Greece and Rome。 那发型的精致是什么样的状况呢？我们看到后面第6句的地方啊，比如说女性呢就会把头发做成是卷发啊，或者是发髻的造型，然后增加一些配饰，例如还是撒上金粉啦，甚至有一些镶珠宝的皇冠，当然就是象征着社会地位跟财富。不过接下来同样在第2段的第6句也有一个关系子句的简化哦，只不过啊它是一个补充说明非限定用法的关系子句简化。我们看到这里的第6句，第6句先行词是括号之前的 curls 或者是 chinian， 就是所谓的卷发或者是发髻，而括号后面逗点之后省略的是 which。 注意哦，非限定用法补充说明的关系子句，这个冠带一定要用 which， 它代替的就是前面卷发或者是发髻。 which were improved 同样呢也是一个 be 动词 were 的省略。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. This is our history unit, and it's a fun one, I think, because I love fashion. I like talking about history, and we're combining both of these things together. We're talking about how hairstyles have changed over the ages, the evolution of hairstyles over our history. So we started with Egypt. We know that they had their hair very short, or they would shave their heads for cleanliness, not just for appearance, but just to keep clean. And they would wear wigs on a special occasion, for example, at some sort of ceremony, maybe at a wedding, or they were offering sacrifices to the gods. So they would wear their wigs at that point, and their wigs styles indicated social ranking. Remember, we put that possessive apostrophe on wigs to show that we're talking about something that belongs to the wigs. What are we talking about? Well, the wigs styles. So you could also take the apostrophe off and just say wig styles. Don't make wig plural. So you have a choice there because we often will take a noun and turn it into an adjective, wig styles. So they indicated where they were on that social ladder, as we say sometimes. And it also, we found out that pharaohs, those were the rulers, the ultimate ruler of Egypt, and then the nobles that worked for them, selected detailed designs. They like a lot of elaborate things. So the women would style their hair in curls or chignons, coils of hair worn at the back of the head. We call them buns, That's all we say. I'm going to put my hair back in a bun. B-U-N. That's how we say it, ladies. So they would improve their hairstyle then with accessories, sprinkling gold powder into their hair. Can you imagine having too much money and just using that gold to put on your hair and then washing it out and losing it? But it would make their hair sparkle, and they also wore jeweled crowns, and the complexity, how fancy their hairstyles were, also signified or represented their social status and wealth.
Indeed. So those are some bits of information regarding hairstyles of the past. Let's move up now to the Middle Ages in Europe there. Religious conservatism led to simpler hairstyles, often concealed under coverings or scarves. So things got more conservative during the Middle Ages. Of course, if you're conservative, you're not so elaborate. You're not trying new designs. You're basically doing how it was done before. You're doing it more simply. And here we've got the noun conservatism, which is the movement of the conservatives, basically. In politics, of course, we have the liberals versus the conservatives. And here, of course, the noun form is conservatism. If you want to talk about the left wing, then we've got liberalism. That's when we just make these terms into nouns.
Right. So they went back to kind of simple ways of styling their hair. If you wear a covering, you can't see it, right? I would describe the hijab that the Middle Eastern women wear, those who belong to the Muslim faith. Those are hijabs. That's a covering. You just are putting something over something else. Or scarves. They could put a scarf on their head. A scarf or scarves. Remember, it's not scarfs. If you make it plural, you have to change the F to a V. However, in the Renaissance, which was an interesting period of time, there was a revived interest in beauty and elegance. If you revive something, you bring it back from being kind of dead or not popular. For example, I remember it was several years ago, they kind of were reviving the mini skirt, which was popular in the 50s, 60s, more 60s, not the 50s. But to revive is to bring something back from death. You can revive a person who is perhaps, his heart stopped beating, but the doctors can revive them. So there was an interest in beauty and elegance once again because the Renaissance was all about returning to classical art and beauty. So elegance refers to something that is elegant. This is the noun form. If something is elegant or a person is elegant, they're very graceful and stylish, especially if you are looking at their appearance or how they behave, their mannerisms, very elegant. I describe, my grandmother was very elegant. She was very humble, but very elegant, and she always looked perfect. I was always impressed with that. Although she wasn't focused on beauty, she just, had a lot of personal pride. So as a result, what happened?
As a result of that, women adopted complex braids and updos, which is when hair is swept up behind the head. They were decorated with jewels, while men preferred shoulder-length hair styled with hair creams. Again, this is happening during the Renaissance, and they started to have some new ideas about hairstyles. If you have braids, that means you're taking strands of hair and you're kind of wrapping them around each other. I used to braid my daughter's hair when my wife was busy taking care of her mother in the hospital. You take 3 strands and you take one over the other 2, and then you take another one and go over the other 2 on the left, and you keep going back and forth. But you can have very complex braids as well. I remember from time to time in the United States seeing black girls with very elaborate braids of their hair. It's really fabulous to see that. That is really one great hairstyle, those braids that African-American women have.
It doesn't have to be African-American.
Yeah, whiteys can have them too.
No, we would do French braids when I was in high school, which is really pretty. I wanted to mention, if you're British, we don't say braids, we say plait.
Okay.
Plait. And they plait their hair. Plaiting is their activity. So a little different. I just wanted to mention, when I read the article, I said complex, and Tom says complex. They're both correct. You can pick what you want with that particular word. So, yeah, they were putting, the men at least, were growing their hair out to their shoulders, shoulder-length hair, and they were using a lot of hair creams. The hairstyles before this period, or during this period, were, of course, again, a display of wealth and reflected the period's artistic growth. They were really concerned during the Renaissance in beauty.
Exactly. So, yeah, I guess they became hippies back then. The men had long hair down to their shoulders, and they would put cream in their hair. Hair creams were common back then. I think they made a revival later on in the 50s and 60s.
Yep.
Not so much anymore. Guys don't grease up their hair so much anymore. And the hairstyles during this period, during the Renaissance, were a display of wealth and reflected the period's artistic growth. So again, it became a status symbol. How you styled your hair, again, you had more elaborate or complex braids or plaits. And, of course, you could put other accessories in your hair, like jewels. The men had longer hair with the grease in their hair, I guess, or creams. And, of course, these things were designed to display your wealth or your status. And from the 17th to 19th centuries, hairstyles underwent dramatic changes. If you undergo something, this thing happens to you, and this is later on, maybe during the Baroque or whatever period, the hairstyles changed dramatically. In the 18th century, the European upper class embraced fancy wigs and high hairstyles. So they wore wigs, and they also had hairstyles that were high up in the air.
Very high. So Marie Antoinette, her hairstyle went up 60 centimeters. Crazy. I wonder how heavy it felt. But again, she didn't have to do much. Sadly, Marie got her head chopped off.
Along with her hair.
During the French Revolution, yeah. So these were costly to create, of course, and they actually built the hairstyle within a cage that you would imagine a bird would go in, and that would help shape the hair and add height. Crazy. So contrarily just means the opposite. So here's the opposite. Contrarily, the Victorian era with Queen Victoria in England saw a shift back to natural hairstyles. And again, it it stands for this modesty, where you weren't trying to get a lot of attention. You were very humble, and just trying to be a good person and not try to be a party animal. So modesty and femininity. Femininity is when you reflect things that are supposed to be female, I guess, in form. Nowadays, everybody's opposite, so I don't know what's going on. Women wore, back then, in the Victorian era, long, coiled hair, and they often would wear their hair with short bangs. The hair, we call it fringe in British English. Short hair across your forehead, those are bangs, but they would never, ever put their hair down in public. That was a no-no.
Indeed, and we'll continue talking about hairstyles in our next lesson, but let's take a time out now and listen to our Chinese teacher.
接下来到了第3段，一定又跳到了另外一个时代咯。没错，我们在第3段的第一句一开始这个主题句就告诉我们 During the Middle Ages， 到中世纪时期的时候，当时因为宗教的这种保守主义，就导致了更简单的一些发型。那这些发型呢，常常会隐藏在头巾或者是围巾之下。像第3段在第一句这个主题句，我们同样也看到一个限定用法、非限定用法的关系子句的简化，逗点之后的which跟 be 动词的 were 省略掉。那当然这里的which 很直接的就代替的是逗点前面的 simpler hairstyles， 比较简单的发型。这个简单的发型呢，甚至还会被通常都藏在头巾或者是围巾之下。当我们知道中古世纪的那个时候呢，文艺复兴时期开始的时候，就大家对于美跟优雅这种的兴趣呢，又重新被唤回。也就是因为这个原因，所以女性就采用了一些复杂的辫子，甚至是高发髻，而男性呢，则是用发蜡来定型，甚至留着及肩的长发。同样在这个第3段，我们看到刚才提到的这种男生女生发型的一种对比对照，特别注意第3句，在句子中间逗点之后，这里的 while 不是表示时间哦，而表示的是逗点前女性当时发型的偏好，跟逗点之后男人的发型男性的偏好的发型的对比跟对照。所以在这里的 while 是个连接词，通常会翻成然而另一方如何如何。好，最后面一段呢，我们看到第4段，同样也是在第1句，这个组织很清楚。这里的主题句时间就告诉我们，从17到19世纪的时候 from the 17th to 19th century， 那17到19世纪这个变化就很多咯。基本上呢，从18世纪的时候欧洲的上流社会就很流行华丽的假发还有高发型。最著名的例子呢，就是那个高发型这个在这个玛丽安东尼的这种60公分的高的这种发型，它是怎么样的一个发型呢？它是一个很特别的发型，制作是非常高昂的。在最后这一段，请特别注意一下第4句的部分。第4句句子的中间逗点之后出现了 built， 这里的 built 是过去分词，但是其实整个句子呢是 and 省略的一种简化的分词构句。逗点之后本来应该有 and were， 当然主词就是 these， 就是这些假发。这些假发 these were costly， 制作成本非常的昂贵 to create。 本来应该句子是逗点的 and were， 而这些假发呢是基本上要用高高的笼状框架的基础来塑形，来增加高度。好，所以这是第4句哦。那接下来的第5句呢，我们看到也有一个关系子句的简化。这个关系子句简化也是补充说明的，逗点之后本来应该有 which signified。 好，在这边特别注意一下哦，如果我们把关系子句不管是which或者是 that 省略之后，动词都会直接变成动词 ing， 所以在这里的 signifying 它原本应该是过去式的 signified。 像我们刚刚看到其他的关系子句简化，如果看到的是 PP 型，就表示前面的 being be 动词做了一个简化。好，我们还没有讲完哦。到了后来19世纪维多利亚时代就回归自然的发型，所以就象征一些端庄女性的气质，就比较不那么华丽，甚至是这个女性她的长发就会很整齐，甚至抹上油。但是在公共场合的话，还是不会披头散发的。我们明天还会针对发型做更多的讲解。我是安娜，我们明天见。
That's all for today, everybody, but please join us again next time when we continue to talk about hair and hairstyles, at least in terms of the evolution of hairstyles through history. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.